Okay, so I'm here to kind of explain what process I go through on a typical photograph that I might take when I'm out in the field. This is a photograph simply called House Finch on Peach Branch, and just a little bit of background before I go into how I edit it. This shot was taken from a blind. It is a setup bird shot. In other words, I specifically took this branch off from a blooming peach tree that would have been thrown out anyway, just a cutting. And I set it up in a location where the sun would provide some side lighting and would light the bird properly. I intentionally clipped this branch so that there was space for the bird to come and land. But what I wanted to do here is just briefly explain to you what I typically do after I import my photograph into Lightroom. Okay, so to start with, I'm going to double click on the image. It's going to bring it up. What I'm going to do first is I am going to just look at this image and I'm going to try to figure out what I need to do to it. Okay, right off the bat, I can see it looks pretty good. The lighting is what I had anticipated. Some strong side lighting coming in from the right side of the screen. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to zoom up in this area here to my left. It's a fairly dark area, and I'm going to zoom into that and just look for noise issues because I want to get a feel for what I might be in store for here. And there's some noise, but overall, not too bad. The image is fairly sharp. It's quite sharp actually. This is the 70 to 200L f4L from Canon. Um, so yeah, a little noise reduction will be needed. We'll go into that in a minute. The framing looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead first and just, before I do anything to this image, I'm going to click the Develop module in the top right up here. And then I'm going to click this rectangular crop overlay. And that's going to give me this overlay over top of the image that allows me to actually crop. And simply, you just take one of the corners and you can drag that. And it will actually crop your image. Much easier than the old darkroom days. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to, kind of just crop out, barely crop out this other flower down here in the corner. I really don't like it there. Doesn't really add to the image. In this case, I'm not really going to go for an off-center composition. I'm going to leave him fairly centered. Once I'm satisfied the crop is good, I'm going to click Done. And next I'm going to kind of look at the highlights of the image. And so what I'm going to do is if you look over here in the basic, and right here's the basic tab over here to the right, what you'll see in the color tab underneath that is your tone, your highlights, your shadows, the whites, the blacks, the clarity of the image, the vibrance, and the saturation. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here. First of all, I think really the color temperature looks pretty good at about 4950. So I'm going to leave that alone. I kind of like it. It's got a little bit of a golden tone. You could add a little bit if you wanted to. It probably wouldn't kill the image, but I'm going to leave it alone. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set my black point and my white point. Okay, so go down to your whites. You're going to hold down the Alt key and then press your left mouse button right on top of the slider arrow. What that's going to do is going to bring up this screen right here, which shows you where your whites are clipping. And I've got some clipping highlights here in the whites on this on the flowers themselves. So I'm going to go ahead and just reduce that until I see some of that start to go away. And in this case, you're really not going to see that much go away because so I'm not going to do a lot here. Maybe a -40, because I'm gonna control that in a second here with the highlight slider. And then the blacks, I'm gonna back those blacks off until I just start to see a little bit of clipping. And see, if I go too far, you can see the black is just totally clipped, and that's not desirable. So I want to bring that back just till I see the blacks disappear. Just disappear. So, whoops, a little too far there. So blacks are pretty good, about a -12 on the blacks there. And now, now the picture is kind of balanced between the lightest lights and the darkest darks. And now I can go in here and I can say, okay, I still think the flowers are too hot. What if I bring back the highlights a little bit? So I'm going to come over here, right here to the highlights, and just bring those back just to where I think I like them. That looks pretty good. I'm going to just bring them back a little bit. That's going to be about a -88 on those highlights. Got pretty hot. Those flowers got pretty hot. When I say hot, I mean the light is intense. So it's a typical scenario. You've got basically a brown bird here and his feathers, and you've got the bright reds up here, but you've got these really, although they're pink, they're almost white flowers, and so it makes kind of a highlight nightmare, if you will. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom into the bird's head, because your focal point of this image is really the bird's head. Okay, when a user, or when a viewer, I should say, looks at this bird, he's immediately attracted to those red feathers and the eye. We're always attracted to the eye, whether it be a human or an animal. So I'm going to zoom into that eye, and you can see it's fairly sharp. We're definitely going to want to kind of lighten this up, and there's a couple ways you can do it. You can increase your shadows to the whole scene, and I'll show you what that looks like here. That's a little right in the details, in the basic tab, and right here in the shadow slider. I'm going to increase that and bring up some of those shadows. Oops, not too much. Not get too crazy here. Okay, about a +67 on the shadows. Only because, and like I said, I think I'm going to back that off just a little bit. Maybe to +31, because I'm going to do some brush work here in a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to zoom in on the shadows in the background here. I'm going to check my noise. Noise looks about like it did before. It's pretty good. Now, I really don't like the bird's head. The bird's head is just not bright enough. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some selective painting. And in order to do that, I'm going to select the adjustment brush over here. It's this little slider looking icon over here to the right, just below your histogram. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to zoom in first on the bird's head. And here you can see in its beak, it's very dark. Right up here around its eye, it's very dark. And ideally you'd want the light just a little bit more front lit than this, but it's okay. I like what's going on here. A lot of guys get real bent out of shape about the direction of light, but I kind of like good side lighting. It provides a lot of texture in the feathers. You can see here a lot of texture in these feathers coming out. Now this is a Canon 7D, which does have an AA filter on it, or an anti-aliasing filter, and so you're going to have some blur here at 100%. You're going to have some blur. This bird is actually in sharp focus, but you're going to have some blur. So we'll fix that in a little bit. But first, I want to actually click on my adjustment brush. It's going to create a layer. I'm going to increase the exposure. You want to start out very light increments of about, I'm going to actually type in about 0.14 and just begin to bring this up a little bit and just look very carefully. And I go in circular motions that I think it makes things look a little more natural. You want to be careful not to get over here in this highlight, because that's just going to make the highlights blow out. We're trying to just get this shadow area here to illuminate, and I'm going to bring that up a little bit more, maybe a plus 20. Okay, a plus 32. Okay. I'm going to click done. I'm going to zoom back out and look at the whole image, because that gives me a feel for what's going on. It's still a little too dark on its head. So what I'm going to do is zoom back in. I'm going to select the adjustment brush. Now, I could simply click on the old adjustment brush, which would allow me to paint more light in, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually create a new adjustment layer. I'm going to come right in here on the beak and just bring that up. And guys, we're not doing anything here that they didn't do or that I didn't do back when I was working in the wet darkroom. This is not manipulation of the image in any way. This is strictly dodging and burning that we're doing here. There's nothing unethical about any of this, so don't worry about that type of thing. And I'm going to go ahead and bump that up. Whoop. That's not what I wanted to do. Okay, and click done. Zoom back out. You can see the beak is now much lighter. That gives me a much more balanced exposure. The wing here, I'd like to lighten the wing up just slightly. You don't want to lighten it up to the point where I'm going to select my adjustment brush. You don't want to lighten it up to the point where it overpowers your sunlight coming here on the back. You just want to give it a, oh, by the way, you can zoom in also by clicking on the thumbnail over here to the left. And you can also drag that down to its wing. And I will then go through here and very gently lighten that up and blend it. Let's zoom back out. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to increase that to about 32, about a 41 on that one. And I think it still looks natural there. That's probably as far as I'm going to go with that. We don't want to go too crazy. Now on these blossoms here, you could definitely do some work on them. They could definitely, I'm going to do one real quick. I'm not going to do all the blossoms, but I'm going to zoom in on one here and show you what you can do. Select your adjustment brush, reduce your you can do one of two things. You can reduce your exposure, which is what I'm going to do, or you can reduce your highlights if there's enough headroom. If you've already reduced your highlights to max, then you won't be able to do anything else. Your camera's dynamic range will determine how much highlights you can remove from the image or reduce in the image. So I'm just going to go in here and just paint in a -41 exposure on the back of these flowers. And we've lost some detail here, and I'm not really worried about that. Some people get really upset with the detail loss and some of the highlights. I'm not going to go too crazy here. This is just a demo purposes. Incidentally, this image was actually just published. So I'm happy about that. A book coming out in 2017. I also want to show you something else about this image, which is completely unrelated to editing. Notice that the flowers are not all in focus. and that's okay. The main thing is its head. You want its head and down its back a little bit to be in focus. There's another thing about this image that I'm not crazy about. I'm going to go ahead and take care of that now. Down here in the corner, we have a little bit of a leaf here sticking out. Actually, it's just a brand new bud, actually. And I'm going to click on the spot removal tool. Normally I would do this in Photoshop, but I just wanted to show you how you can do it in Lightroom. So you want to take this, I have it on heal mode over here. Over here to the right, I have it on heal mode. And you want to just bring that reticle, or whatever you want to call it, over top of it. And just click once, left click. Now what we can see here is that Lightroom has chosen this area here to replace this area. Now you can move this around however much you want to make you happy. I kind of like that, actually. I think it's a little better. Once you're happy with the cloning process, you can click done. There's still a little funky bit right down here in the corner. I'm not real worried about that. I may just bring this up a hair and just get rid of it, like so. Just crop that out a little bit. Okay. So now that I've got this picture to a decent place, I mean, there's a whole lot more you could do with this. You could do a whole lot more with the flowers and lightening and darkening. Another thing that I did in the original image is, if I zoom in here, let's do this real quick just to show you kind of what I'm talking about. Click on your zoom into that branch, and then click on the adjustment brush, and I'm going to just decrease this by about -41, and you can actually get pretty tight in here. I mean, whoops, I'm going to increase it by 41, not decrease it by 41. Okay, let's just type it in. A lot of times it's easier to just type it in, 0.41, and just go ahead and paint that light in to this branch. Be very careful that you do not go over the edge of that branch. If you go over the edge of the branch, you will have a lot of issues. A lot of issues. You'll see ghosting and so on. This is a very delicate process. And then once you get it, you can kind of adjust the lightness and darkness of it, and you can bring that right up. Now when I zoom out, it should look a little bit better. And again, you can play around with that, mess around with as much as you want. You can see here, now this is what I'm talking about. Look here where I kind of messed up with my painting process. You can see what I'm talking about. You get these edges of light where it's all messed up. This is a little easier to do in Photoshop, actually. Well, if you make a mistake, you just hit Control Z, and bye-bye. Problems are gone. So I would definitely do that in this image. I would try to bring out the bird's foot a little bit more, and just do it in a natural way. Don't get crazy with the tools. This is a natural process. So I'm pretty happy with that now. What happens if, do I feel like the bird's head is bright enough? I could maybe lighten that up a little bit more. What about the sharpening and so on? Let's do that next. I always add, by the way, we're still in the basic tab here. I always add a little bit of clarity. And just what that does is it just makes everything pop a little bit. Makes everything pop. It's a little bit of contrast, a little bit of sharpening. And already, just from doing the clarity, you can see it's starting to sharpen up here on the bird. Very high quality image from that 70 to 200. You can do saturation, you can do a little vibrance. That's also helpful. But be very careful with these reds. They blow out very easily. The red channels are horrible on digital cameras. So now I'm going to move down into detail. Now what I do is I generally will not sharpen an image until later in the process. And actually I'm going to do something a little bit different here. there's already been a default level of sharpening applied, as we can see here, plus 25 applied by Lightroom, and that's to try to compensate for the AA filter. The 7D has a particularly strong AA filter, and so for the sensor, and the sensor on the 7D is not the best in the world anyway. But what I want to do next is I want to do a little bit of noise reduction. Okay, so I'm going to just bump up the luminance to about a 10. I'm going to bump up, the color looks good, the color is good at 25, and we should start to see some of that noise go away here. Oh yeah, much smoother, much smoother. Okay, now I want to do something a little bit different. I am not someone that applies sharpening generally to the entire image, because what often happens is if you have a background like this, like we have today, which is kind of shadowy in the back, it's kind of what it is it's a gradient background. It goes from a somewhat darkish color to a much lighter color. And so we got to be careful about these shadows up in here and not causing us to sharpen the noise. You don't want that noise to be sharp. You don't want to sharpen things that don't need sharpened. So I'm always one that believes in selective sharpening. And so I'm going to click on the adjustment brush again, and I could select some of these other adjustment brush areas that I've already, these layers that I've already applied, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to go up here and clear. I'm going to double click on, this is confusing. A lot of people don't even know about this feature. But up here in the effect, up here in the effect label, you can actually double click this label and it will clear it all out. So let's say I had like some crazy stuff down here in the bottom, you know, all this crazy stuff from the last time I was in here. I can just go up here and double click the effect and it resets everything. Very good tool. So we're here, we want to apply sharpening, and mainly I'm going to sharpen his head because that's the part that really needs our attention. And it's one of these things where, let's zoom in on the head, where you don't want too much sharpening because it just looks unnatural. So I'm going to start by increasing my sharpening slightly to about a plus 26. I'm going to start with the eye and apply the sharpening and see how that looks. It looks pretty good. I'm going to bring it up just a hair more just on the eye. The eye gets its own sharpening, its own layer of sharpening. I will also go up here and I see the eye needs a little bit more exposure. I'll add a plus 14. And I will add a little bit of clarity to the eye to just bring out some of the subtleties of the eye. Okay, I'm going to click done. I've now sharpened his eye adequately. Now I'm going to click on this, and now notice that it's not so sharp that it's weird. It's just sharp. You don't want it to get crazy. It just looks very unnatural. So I'm going to come over here to the beak. I'm going to just sharpen the beak with a brand new layer. Come down here. I'm going to sharpen below his beak. Going to come in here behind the eye. I'm going to come down, work my way down in circles along his shoulder area of his wing. You can see that sharpening up very nicely there. Part of that is because it's a really high quality lens and it's the resolution's already there. You're just bringing it out a bit with the sharpening tool. You don't really need to sharpen much down in here. It's already out of focus. That's just pointless to sharpen. I like to sharpen his feet as well. The feet look great sharpened up. And I'm going to click done. And that's pretty much it. That's what I would do to this photograph. And this is a very typical photograph. This is a photograph that um, I pretty much nailed it in camera. I just needed to do some subtle tweaks to it. And on the next video, I'm going to show you really how to bring all this together with a photograph that's not exactly perfect. You know, maybe you missed the exposure, maybe the focus is a little off, and you want to apply some selective sharpening. I'm going to kind of ratchet things up on the next video and show you some advanced techniques that will hopefully get you on your way. I want to encourage you to go ahead and check out my website at www.mattcuda.com. You can check me out on Twitter at Matt Cuda, Matt Cuda on Instagram. I have a podcast, audio podcast available for your favorite podcast catcher, and let me know what you think.